The following transmission contains unencrypted instances of explicit language.
Shall we begin?
Smiley is suspicious, Percy.
You won't know who to trust. Let's begin.
Welcome back, fellow spy nerds, to the Spies Like Us podcast. That is the podcast where we discuss the representation of tradecraft on screens large and small. With me today are Chris and Anthony.
Hello.
Oh, was I supposed to say hello? I already forgot the plan.
Yeah, you waved on the video, but I don't think they can hear a wave.
I technically you can hear a wave.
Oh my gosh. Off to a great start. That's Chris. I'm Anthony.
We are the Sci-Fi Wise Guys. We watch and review science fiction and science fiction adjacent movies, television shows, YouTube videos, short films, fan films. We were sent forth by the Sci-Fi Godfathers to spread the word and make you a podcast you can't refuse.
Yes.
I certainly can't refuse it. I'm a big fan. And the reason I've brought you guys onto this show is because we've got a movie that can legally be called a spy movie. But it's going to raise some eyebrows, but I like to do some fun, fringy stuff. We're going to talk about Total Recall, the 1990 Paul Verhoeven film. And, not a lot of tradecraft to talk about there, but that's why you guys are here. We can talk about the science fiction of it. And the way we've worked this out, we're also producing an episode yet to be recorded on the 2012 remake. I'm going to come on your guys' show, or by the time people are hearing this, I will have. We're already doing some cool time travel stuff here to talk about that one. And listeners,
Different movie.
Listeners, if all has gone according to plan, you could pause this right now, go and subscribe to Sci-Fi Wise Guys. I do recommend it, and you're going to find that 2012 episode already waiting for you.
Yeah.
Suitable for framing.
Definitely go subscribe, come back and listen to this one first, because you're not going to get any of the references in our episode until you've heard this one.
I think that's the right way to do it.
Or play them both at the same time and just choose violence.
Two different earbuds, one in each ear. See how they line up.
2 phones, everything.
We could have done an episode where I showed up thinking we were going to talk about the 1990 film. You guys showed up thinking you were going to talk about the 2012 film. And the bit would be, we never quite figure out that we're not talking about the same film.
I mean, as soon as I mentioned Colin Farrell, I think you'd figure it out. I think you're at least that smart.
I think Anthony and I had a joke. We were like, what if we just don't watch Total Recall, because we did a podcast on a movie called The Recall. And what if we just halfway through, we're like, wait a minute, this isn't the movie we were supposed to watch.
Yeah.
But it had Wesley
Didn't
Snipes.
do that.
It was a whole thing.
Decided we'd save those horrible bits for our podcast and not taint your podcast.
Yeah.
With my bad ideas.
Fantastic. Hey, before we get started, let me remember to congratulate you guys on 2 years, which you just passed.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. We just,
Oh.
it's hard to think about, actually. I feel like we just started.
I hope you have. You're definitely never going to run out of content.
No, they keep making bad movies.
Yeah.
And some good ones.
Well,
occasionally.
I think the pandemic, it's not over, right? The pandemic isn't over. COVID isn't gone. But I think that for the most part, people seem to have pretend that it's gone. So movies are being re-released. They're being released in theaters now. So I think our quality might drop. Just the quality of the things we watch for new stuff might drop a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
That's I don't think we mentioned it. We only watch straight to stream or straight to DVD sci-fi. So whenever everybody was in lockdown and no one could go to the theaters, they started releasing all of this good stuff on HBO and Netflix. A couple of them on Paramount Plus that were actually really good, theater quality movies. But I think those days are behind us. I think we're going to be right in B movie territory really quickly.
All
Although I mean, we're going to talk about Total Recall 2012. I think that might qualify. Should have been straight to DVD. Might become part of our shtick.
Should have been, right.
Did I have to buy popcorn to see this? No, please.
The film is Total Recall. Came out in 1990. It is a Paul Verhoeven film. And this cough drop is probably going to click like crazy against my teeth. It's the second in what some people call his unofficial science fiction trilogy, because everyone forgets about Hollow Man. Stars Arnold Schwarzenegger at pretty close to, I would think, really the peak. I think this is peak Schwarzenegger, in my opinion. The intelligence agencies that we're going to see, well, it's a science fiction spy story set in the year 2074 or so. And we're largely left to imagine the governments or their intelligence agencies that might be in play. Apparently, we've colonized Mars at some point, although there are references that tourist trips to Venus or Saturn might be an option. Mars seems to be ruled largely by a corporation, and our supervillain Cohagen functions, it seems, as some kind of governor, like you might have seen in colonial days. A certain character mentions that total memory control would be the province of something called the fucking agency.
Someone? I mean, we're talking about the fucking agency.
Shut up!
And that suggests to me that Earth and Mars share some kind of shared governmental control. Alongside that, we've got some kind of resistance group on Mars that is resisting the exploitation of resources. For some reason, this resistance group is primarily composed of mutants and that they have some kind of psychic abilities. One of you guys had not seen the movie before and the other had seen it 30 times. Can you identify yourselves there?
I have seen this movie more times than I can count. Chris.
I saw this movie for the first time yesterday.
I would love to hear Anthony's first thoughts and impressions at this point.
Oh, putting me on the spot. Very good. I definitely understand all the hype. I completely, after watching this, I'm like, man, I get why people really like this film. I probably should have seen it more times than I can count, but I haven't. It's weird. It's got this Schwarzenegger over the top action, that 90s or late 80s, early 90s kind of blood and gore style. The practical effects are great. When I say blood and gore style, just the look of it. The women are treated as objects instead of actual characters. The sci-fi is not that great. But all that aside, there's this really interesting mystery surrounding just the entire plot and whether or not Quaid is imagining everything and it's all a dream or it's not, and it's left up to the audience to interpret, which I don't see how this film could have been made today, both with kind of the over the top violence, but also with kind of letting the audience figure stuff out on their own at the end. There would have been some stupid mid-credits or post-credits scene that hinted at something else. They would already be planning a sequel. Although I did read after watching this that they tried to make more than one sequel over the years, which eventually gave us the remake.
They wanted to try to make Minority Report into a sequel to this.
Yeah. So I guess like an early vision or versions of Minority Report wasn't actually a sequel to this, and Quaid was like the leader of whatever organization was doing the precog stuff. So that's weird and interesting. Overall, I really liked the movie. Like I really enjoyed it. I would give it a thumbs up.
Excellent. Personally, I did see it. I'm old enough to have seen it in theaters. If I remember correctly, I remember the guy I went to see it with, and it followed a pattern that would happen to us a lot, where we would walk out of the theater just expressing absolute total joy with what we had just seen. And somewhere between leaving the theater and the car ride home, having discussed everything, getting home, having decided actually it was a total piece of nonsense garbage. Because we would just start thinking about things that didn't make sense and just completely reversing conclusion. I did
You
absolutely.
got to take it at face value.
You kind of do. You kind of do. In the years since I've swung back to, I really do like it. It is my least favorite of the three. I hold RoboCop and especially Starship Troopers in much higher estimation. I don't think Total Recall to me is a must-see science fiction movie, but if you like science fiction of this era in general, then it's got to be on your list, probably.
I think where it might be must-see is just how much it influences things that are better than it, if that makes sense. Like, I think without Total Recall, we don't have Minority Report, and we probably don't have The Matrix in the same way we have The Matrix. So I think in and of itself, in a silo, it's not super important. It's not a 10 out of 10 or anything that you need to go see. But if you're a connoisseur of the genre and you want to kind of understand all of these other films and everything that came after it, I think it could be seen as a must see.
I actually disagree.
Oh,
in what you said, how the sci-fi isn't great and how it isn't a must see. So Todd was right. This is peak Arnold. Like, this is right after Terminator, right before Terminator 2, which I think anyone who is an action movie junkie or just a fan of film would say that Terminator 2 is probably the best sequel ever made. And I would argue probably one of the best movies ever made. However, we've talked about in the past on our pod that science fiction doesn't have to be aliens. It doesn't have to be crazy advanced science. It can literally just be, what you make of it, right? And the science fiction in this movie, we'll get into it a little bit later, I think, Todd, when you're going to do the plot breakdown with the memory wiping, like, who is Douglas Quaid? Like, what is Douglas Quaid? What's real, and what's not real? Like, reality is your reality is what you believe and what you are perceiving, right? And there's a very important scene at the end of this movie where, like, it's the twist. And like, that's a great science fiction moment because, like, for Quaid is real to Quaid, but he's not real, right? So, but is he real since he exists currently in the moment? It asks a lot of, I think, existential questions. I don't think it answers them very well because this is just some crazy Verhoeven action film. It's much less nuanced than RoboCop. It's way less nuanced than Starship Troopers. And so I would disagree. I think it's a must see. I think this is like, I looked it up. This is, and so Carol, this is a Carol Co movie, which was a large independent film studio in the late 80s, early 90s that went bankrupt because of Cutthroat Island. Thanks, Gina. And from the only box office numbers I could find, this made $261 million worldwide.
Big hit.
It's a must-see. Like, it's a defining movie of the genre. So that's my opinion.
Yeah. I want to clarify about the quote unquote bad sci-fi. Only bad that in it a lot of it doesn't make sense when you try to really think about it.
Yeah,
and that type of, like, I think a lot of older science fiction just takes, like, you just got to just go with it, suspend disbelief. Yeah, we can totally rewrite your memories. Yeah, it only costs $900. Heck, we can give you 2 weeks vacation for $900. Credits, sorry, 900 credits. and it's such a lucrative business that we can focus on one customer at a time for like 45 minutes and split that 900 credits 6 ways amongst all the employees. I was like, how? Like, as this scene was happening, all I could think about is how this is not a sustainable business model.
Well,
I don't understand how they're doing
on a Fred Flintstone salary.
Exactly. I was like,
I mean, that's the local office. Okay. Yeah.
that's just the one.
I bet it's
Yeah,
a
but
franchise.
it's still just the
Yeah.
one office. Look, it wasn't the guy that he goes and sees. Isn't that the guy in the?
No,
Or maybe it's not. Is it not the guy in the commercial that he sees on
no,
the
it is
subway?
not
No,
Dr.
it's different.
Edgemart.
Okay. Sorry. I only saw it
should be.
once. I can't really remember. But yeah, no, like the economy of things, just yeah, they fly to Mars in like a day. Like,
Can we call the science fiction appreciably goofy?
Yeah, I mean, I would call it. I mean, it's pretty. Is it cheesy? Is it hammy? What would you call it?
I think it just like I said. I think it just asks questions that it can't answer. Right? Like you in a lot of science fiction, like even really good science fiction, there's a lot of hand waving because the science doesn't make sense because it's fiction. But no, I just think, like I said, this thing asks a bunch of existential questions and then there's no payoff, which like mediocre, but like execution isn't great. I think fundamentally it's pretty good. But
okay,
goofy might be the right word, Todd. You might.
I mean, yeah, goofy. It's been a while since I've been able to describe something as goofy. I'm not upset about it. I mean, like he has a hologram of himself that the bad guys gave him, that he then uses to kill a bunch of bad guys.
Don't.
So, I mean, I guess like now
don't step on Todd's toes. Don't.
I'm sorry, Todd. I'm sorry, Todd.
No, it's
something
fine.
about minus spy points. Look, yeah, I agree with. I think that's the thing about this movie is that we're all right, and we're all probably a little bit wrong at the same time, because of how I think that this is a great example of a film or of a work of art that is bigger than what it is, right? Like its impact on everything else is you can't measure it. It is bigger than what it is. It is literally greater than the sum of its parts. Because when you start breaking down the parts, it falls apart pretty quickly. As we're going. All right, you asked me for my initial thoughts and opinions. It's been 15 minutes. I'm still talking, so I think that's like overall positive for sure. Yeah.
Okay, sweet. I gotta at least put a pin in this too. As far as the influence of this film, though, because I think this is the second Philip K. Dick book that gets adapted, following Blade Runner, and there is pretty much no such thing as a faithful adaptation of a Philip K. Dick book. A Scanner Darkly, I think, comes pretty damn close, but even more so than Blade Runner, Total Recall really kind of saddled us Philip K. Dick fans with this notion that all of his, heady, weird, mind trippy novels can be adapted into action slugfests. And that's how you pad out a short story in order to make a feature length. Whereas Dick's protagonists are overwhelmingly like middle-aged, tubby, disillusioned bureaucrats, really, I think the very first line in Minority Report is, I'm old and I'm fat. And I just laugh when I think of someone reading those lines and saying, let's see if Tom Cruise is available for this one. Let's see. So, Anthony.
Yes.
Nope. Chris. All right.
What's up?
Nope. Chris, you're the one that's seen it a bunch of times. You said you're pretty well versed in how this movie got made, and it is a fascinating story. Do you want to take the lead for us on this one?
Sure. I'll have to pull up the notes on it, but from my immediate memory is that Verhoeven. So let me rephrase that. Someone tried to make this movie a couple of times, and it just could never get past pre-production for XYZ reasons. And like the kicker is Arnie was filming something. I don't remember what it was. And he was on a yacht and he got the rights to this movie. He bought it. He was like, I want to make this movie. And then somehow Paul Verhoeven got involved. I don't remember exactly how.
Schwarzenegger picked him.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and then so they worked out all the details like on a boat in the middle of the Mediterranean. I think while they were maybe Commando. I think he was filming Commando. Because I think production on this movie started in '87. But yeah,
84 is
wow.
when they got serious, when for a while it was going to be done under Dino De Laurentiis as a
Yes.
producer. And I've got the number here somewhere. It's 14 million is what they wasted on pre-production without being able to come to a cohesive agreement. That was a really chaotic time. So you had Dan O'Bannon was involved. He wrote the initial script. He wrote the script for Alien. And I think it's Robert Shusett. Let me get that real quick. Ronald Shusett, who had bought the rights for the movie in 1974 for a paltry $1,000.
Wow.
So
I think Cronenberg was also going to be involved in this at some point.
He was for a while. And that was when, under De Laurentiis, they had Cronenberg, and it was going to star Richard Dreyfuss. De Laurentiis, Cronenberg, Dreyfuss, and Shusett basically were all pulling in entirely different directions from each other, as far as I can tell. Other people were cast, different directors and writers were traded out. Schwarzenegger wanted to get in there, but Dino De Laurentiis didn't like him for it. And they did offer it to Paul Verhoeven, who at that time turned it down because he didn't like science. He didn't want to do science fiction.
That lasted a long time, didn't it?
Yeah. I found my notes. I'm sorry. Essentially it was like, because they don't know exactly when, because this is all oral history, but sometime between Commando and Raw Deal, he liked the script enough and was like, cool, I want it. And then DEG, which is Dilo De Laurentiis' production company, went bankrupt, and he bought the rights for $3 million.
How could they go bankrupt if they're just running around only spending $14 million on projects that they don't even complete? It's a head scratcher.
Is it? If am I right? Is it De Laurentiis did a lot of business with that one, the guy who did what's this movie? Whoever bankrolled Die Hard. There's a guy whose name I can't remember, who may or may not have been a Middle Eastern arms dealer, who was like bankrolling these action movies in the mid to late 80s. Yeah, this is I don't remember his name. I'll find it at some point. But like, he was involved with him. I think that's might have been with the reason that the movie never took off, is DEG was kind of like may have been a money laundering scheme for an arms dealer.
Maybe, maybe not. So, I'm not stating that as fact.
Allegedly. I think everyone involved's dead, so it's okay. But yeah, Schwarzenegger bought the film, and he worked with Carol Co., aforementioned independent movie studio. They made Red Heat. He bought the movie, and then made a bunch of adjustments to the script, and then they started filming. So
yeah,
that's my stuff. Let me find this guy. Hold on.
Yeah, was Arnold Schwarzenegger right for this movie?
Well, he's right for the movie that they ended up making, because and he was heavily involved in it. He was like really the driving force. He was, again, the guy that picked up the script, picked the director, seems to have kind of functioned as a de facto producer on the project. And it's absolutely a time where, as we said, like, Schwarzenegger's stock is so high that he could really, really throw his weight around a studio and get whatever he wanted. And I think this is the movie that I think Schwarzenegger and Verhoeven were probably just in lockstep as far as their vision of the film, because Schwarzenegger fits in so well with this hyper real that it's fake kind of Verhoeven style. often struggle to describe what I think the visual feel of his movies is, and I think the best thing I've ever come up with is that watching his movies feels like reading a comic book in some kind of
it's
Yeah,
very
okay.
visceral. For me, like especially RoboCop. RoboCop's a very visceral movie, and like even in Starship Troopers, the effects are the same. I get what you're saying. At least in terms of his science fiction action movies. But I mean, Hollow Man isn't that visceral. Like, is it?
I just saw Total Recall for the first time. It makes you think I've seen Hollow Man. Can't answer this question.
That's fair. But yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at his other stuff, like his other filmography, like early. I don't think I've seen any of these things. The Fourth Man, maybe. I think I've seen The Fourth Man. But yeah, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is pulpy. It is very comic book esque on the screen.
Oh, I like the comic book comparison quite a bit, actually.
All right. So anywhere you want to take the conversation next, Anthony?
Oh, it's on me.
Sure, why not?
Okay, perfect. I was not prepared. So like we talked about Arnold quite a bit. I'd like to talk about. Can we talk about some of the other actors?
Yeah.
Michael Ironside.
Ooh.
278 credits on IMDb. That includes 11 things in post-production. 11 projects in post-production. Also, the most interesting thing I learned about him, I didn't know that he voiced Sam Fisher until today when I was reviewing and researching for this podcast. So if anyone who doesn't know Sam Fisher, probably the most famous spy in video games, in the star of the Splinter Cell series, voiced by Michael Ironside. And I had no idea. So that's some other spy thing he's been in.
Is he that guy?
Kind of. He's done a ton of voice work. A ton. He was more recently. He was in the Harley Quinn series. He played Darkseid, or voiced Darkseid, I should say. Like it's hard to scroll through and find stuff in his filmography because, like, just like 2017, he's in 9 different things, and that includes multiple TV episodes.
I think we lost Todd.
And we lost Todd.
So Anthony's talking about Michael Ironside and his
I don't know if there's
amount of IMDb credits.
I don't know if there's enough we can say about Michael Ironside. He plays an excellent villain, and the best decision he ever made for his career was just to. You're putting me back on the spot. The best decision he made in his career was to just embrace being that gray villain character. And I think he's done it very, very well. And on top of all of the voice acting, the guy, like I get the feeling like if you told me, hey, do you think Michael Ironside needs to work, or do you think he's set up for life? I'd be like, yeah, he's fine. He doesn't need to work at all. So either I'm wrong and he owes somebody a lot of money, or he just really likes his job, and he's just continuing to do it. Looking at the work he has coming up, looks like 2023. There's a movie called Super Dicks coming out, which is about a couple of detectives. Obviously a comedy. He's playing the police chief. I'm in. All right. So like, I don't know. Is there anything you want to say about Michael Ironside?
Hell yeah.
Okay. It's your podcast. I mean, do you take the reins?
I think I've decided he is my favorite part of this film. If I were to break it all into components, you wonder if he likes doing his job. I think he absolutely has to. Just watching him do what he does on screen, he really lays into his stuff.
Oh yeah.
And there's a line I want to mention here. Glad I saved it from when we were talking about the sci-fi, but the line "he's got a hologram" is a really kind of a bad line on paper. I think there are a lot of actors that would look at that line and go to the director and say, I'm not saying that. But Michael Ironside does the opposite. Like he like puts his mitts around that thing and takes a big fucking bite out of it. He's got a hologram. I remember just being completely thrilled at that line. At the same time, I was thinking, this really kind of doesn't make any sense. Like, you know, it conveys that like people know, like his troops know what a hologram is, and they know the threat that it represents, you know, and just the appropriate amount of tension that comes out of it. Favorite line in the movie, Michael Ironside, best thing about the movie.
He's got a hologram.
Like, all right, we'll talk about the hologram later. Let's talk about a few of the other actors. Sharon Stone and Rachel, I'm going to mispronounce her last name, Tikatin.
I think it's Tikatin.
Tikatin?
I'm going with Tikatin.
I wanted to go with Tikatin, but that's I figured I'd be more conservative and just pronounce it, sound it out. Our two kind of warring female leads. So Sharon Stone being in this film led to her being in probably her most famous role in Basic Instinct a few years later. Recognizable. Just she does a really, really good job of that kind of femme fatale type character. Like, but also, is she betraying him? Is she not? She gets killed with a one-liner. The worst one-liner in the entire movie. Consider this a divorce, and he shoots his wife of 8 years in the head. Oh, okay. All right. Cool. I'm glad that you are committed to this reality, because if you're not, wow.
Yeah, on the basis of a bead of sweat.
Yeah. I mean, that bead of sweat was, man, the filming in that scene, that bead of sweat was really, really really good.
Not but like 24 hours ago, didn't she try to stab him and shoot him in their apartment?
Maybe not. But is this even the real her? If this is all a dream, did he really shoot his wife? Yeah. Did he not? Oh my gosh. I don't know, man. Who knows? Rachel, who Tikatin, who I didn't recognize from anything. Don't think, I mean, like, looking at her filmography, she's done other things. Like, I've seen some of the other stuff she's in. Like, she's in Con Air, she was in Man on Fire. She was a cadaver on NCIS Los Angeles. Like, way too late in her career to be a cadaver. I don't know what is happening.
Maria Chavez in Gargoyles, man.
Yeah, she was in Gargoyles doing a little voice acting. A couple episodes of Lost. So, I mean, her character in The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants is Carmen's mother. So definitely didn't have the same kind of career takeoff that Sharon Stone did, but I thought she did excellent. I don't know how much we want to spend on this, but this is very much a dude action movie. This is when we describe this as a circa 1990, because that's the year it came out. When you take a 1990 action film and then you say, oh, there's two female leads. Well, those female leads they have almost zero depth. I mean, Sharon Stone character with the double cross a bit more. But you have Quaid's wife, and then you have the woman of his dreams, almost literally, right? Depending on how you want to look at it. And they're very skin deep characters. I mean, Sharon Stone gets to work a little bit more, but at the end of the day, she's Michael Ironside's wife who's sleeping with somebody else as part of her work for the agency. But does she really like him or not? I don't know. I had a little bit of a problem with the way the female characters were treated in the film, just by the story, but we can probably push past that because it's a big action flick. It's really about Arnold's character. None of the other characters really get fleshed out either, so it's not super fair. And And then Dr. Eggemeyer turns to his assistant and calls her a dumb bitch in the middle of a conversation.
That
He
was
just
Bob McLean.
Bob McLean. Who did I say?
He said, Dr. Edgemar, don't
Who?
you dare get Ray Baker and Roy Brocksmith confused ever again.
I probably just wrote down the names wrong in my notes.
Edgemar is the guy with the pill, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Edgemar is the guy with the pill.
He's
Right.
Morpheus Light. Yeah.
Yeah, but the doctor in charge of recall refers to his assistant as a dumb bitch, just in casual conversation talking to her. Well, I say it's not that casual, but just in conversation talking to her. It really like took me out of the scene for a moment. Definitely not a line that would have survived. Definitely not a line that's in the remake. I don't know that for sure because I haven't seen the remake in 10 years, but I feel like it probably wasn't in the 2012 movie.
He has really been there.
Use your head, you dumb bitch. He's just acting out the secret agent portion of his ego trip.
I'm afraid that's not possible.
Why not?
Because we haven't implanted it yet.
That was an aside. Thanks for letting me rant. Looking at the rest of these, anything y'all want to say about?
I could jump in on the female stuff for a second and mention that this is the only Schwarzenegger movie I can think of where he is so sexualized, and it's fucking weird to me. Like, I think Verhoeven is the only director that's ever seen Schwarzenegger this way. There's a lot of lines that really like stress his virility and his like like he's women just seem to not be able to resist him at all, kind of thing. The line, "What are you feeding this thing? Blondes?"
Yeah.
That is a good one. But just before or since, I don't think I've ever seen.
They kind of an object in Twins, yeah. In the movie Twins, like
I saw that in the 90s.
Yeah, I might have skated past that one.
Oh, well, it's probably for the best. No, like he's. I mean, I don't want to break down the plot, but like his twin brother's on again, off again girlfriend's little sister sees him, and then 10 seconds later, she's wanting to like smash. Like,
oh wow.
So, I mean, you might be right, but I think that's just Verhoeven's specialty, right? Is subverting your expectations. Like, we've got these two attractive, like, female leads, right? Like Sharon Stone, like Sharon Stone, right? Like she was the sex object of the mid 80s to kind of early 90s. Rachel is not an unattractive woman, and then he just puts all this sexual energy into Schwarzenegger. I think you're right, Todd.
He definitely likes to weaponize sexuality in his films. And I mean, obviously the height of that is, as you just mentioned, Basic Instinct, also a Verhoeven film.
Yeah. I think if we're gonna call it, I'm gonna just call it Arnold Schwarzenegger's raw sexual energy in this film. Sentence I thought I'd never have to say. A lot of that is also feeding into the fantasy of, is this a dream? If it is a dream, then yeah, this is the way he would act. Like women would all want to be with him, and he would always have a one-liner to say. But is that just because it's an Arnold Schwarzenegger action film, and that's kind of what the audience expects, or is it because it's Quaid's dreams and it's his that version of himself that he always wants to be? So I think it adds a layer to it. So it's more than just, I mean, a lot of it's just personal style and what he wanted to do with it, but I think it adds to the mystery of the film quite a bit as well.
Can we talk about Ronnie Cox?
Oh yeah,
let's do it.
Yeah, we can jump to
I've
him
been
next.
waiting a long time to talk about Ronnie.
He was on my list. Let's do it.
It's time.
Is Ronnie Cox the villain of the 90s?
You're gonna have to name some films. He's one of those guys. He's one of those guys. I know I've seen him a million times, and I just can't name any of them except this one.
RoboCop.
Wait. Oh, Ronnie Cox. You're talking about a different guy. Okay, I know. Cohagen. Gotcha.
Sorry.
Okay,
yeah. I mean, like, to a lesser extent, Star Trek: The Next Generation. Anthony knows all about Captain Jellicoe.
Captain Jellicoe is not a villain. Captain Jellicoe
He's an
is
antagonist.
underrated. If they had just done what he said, everything would have been fine, and we would have had 4 more years of Captain Jellicoe.
I just like,
Sorry.
he's also he was senator, then vice president, then president of the United States, Robert Kinsey in Stargate SG-1. He just, every single scene that he's in this movie, he is the center of the universe, which is a lot, saying a lot considering Arnold Schwarzenegger's in the scene with him sometimes. He just chews up the scenery. Like when he's walking around with Michael Ironside in his office kind of later on, and he just points to a chair and Michael Ironside sits down. Like, I don't know if that was in the script, but I like to believe that Ronnie Cox was like, hey, Mike, I'm going to kind of freelance this one a little bit. And then he just walks over and just points, and Michael Ironside sits down.
I like to think that he didn't give him a heads up at all.
Oh yeah.
And Michael Ironside's like, yes, Mr. Cox. Yes.
Yeah.
Sits down.
I mean, I've talked about it before. Todd, I'm absolutely sure you've noticed this before in other movies, but when there's acting that's not on the page, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the things that truly separate us, like an absolute star actor, is someone who's able to do things that make you believe that it's real. Like, my wife is a graduate for she graduated from college with a degree in theater, set design. She's worked with professional community actors and everything. And she talked about meeting an actor who told her, like a professional actor who told her that like great actors, like they don't see the stage or they don't see the audience or the cameras, they see the forest. And I think Ronnie Cox really does, like when he's in it, like, cause he's had some phone in performances before, but like when he's on, like, I think Ronnie Cox believes that he's Cohagen. Like just the way he acts around everyone else. Like he's this old kind of stiff, skinny guy, and he's big dogging Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, and he's the lead actor in this movie. Like this guy just massacred 20 some odd people. Right. And he's like, I'm going to get real close into your face. I'm going to stare you down, and there's nothing you can do about it. I think he's the best part of this movie. Honestly,
He's got to be thinking, you know, part of my job, what I got to go for is, and what he would measure his success by is how big of a cheer is the audience going to give when I fucking die.
Yeah.
100%.
Like when Dick Jones gets obliterated, right?
Oh my God, that's one of the most satisfying things you've ever seen in your life. And it's not just because of what's happening in the moment. It's because of all the work that Ronnie Cox did in building himself up to deserve that so much.
Yeah. That's my bid on
10 out of
Ronnie
10
Cox.
performance.
Yeah.
If I was going to pick up the best actor in this film, it would be Ronnie Cox. It just, like you said, steals every scene. And you mentioned him playing opposite of Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's playing opposite of basically the entire cast at one point, with Rachel Tickerton's character, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Michael Ironside, a whole bunch of extras are all in the room, and he's just owning most of the space. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Thanks, Ron.
You can't have a good hero without a good villain. So I don't know if there's anyone else I want to mention. I do want to talk about Michael Champion's haircut. I thought it was great. Fantastic.
He is Richter's number one hench.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
cool,
the
cool.
henchman. Yeah, he's the best hench.
Quite enjoyable.
He keeps his superior henches in check. Make sure they don't do anything wrong. I do want to give a special shout out to Mel Johnson Jr., who plays Benny, the mutant turned traitor cab driver. Because this is something that Spies Like Us fans might not know, unless y'all have listened to a lot of Sci-Fi Wise Guys. I have wanted for a very long time to have the picture of the character on IMDb next to the picture of the actor. Because a lot of times there's makeup, especially in science fiction, right? There's makeup. This film came out, what is this, 30 years ago. I don't know what they look like now. But here is Mel Johnson Jr. with his mutant claw hand right on IMDb. And I really, really appreciate that. Now he's
Michael
also...
Champion. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just
No.
saying Michael Champion, R.I.P., passed away in 2021.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay.
Yep.
I liked the character of Benny. He was probably his scenes were my favorite scenes. He was hilarious. I know reading into the film, it looks like there was a little bit of negative press around the only black character talking about his kids and being this wisecracker and kind of feeding into some stereotypes, maybe some negatively.
He ain't got 5 kids to feed.
But I enjoyed him. I thought he added a lot to the film. You didn't out of all of the like double crosses in the film, his is the one I least expected.
Well, it's a good one, and that's a good one to talk about tradecraft wise. I kind of could have done without him. Wasn't quite as enamored with him, and for some reason, like the thing that annoyed me the most about the film is the fact that Schwarzenegger had to have like a mini boss battle with him. I don't appreciate it when a movie has to have the protagonist like get their revenge on every single person that's done anything wrong, like, and always in a certain sequential order, leading up to the boss. So I could have done without that. So tradecraft wise, I do want to talk about a little bit about his double cross, and I think this has got one of my worst tradecrafts of the film. Yeah, it's my worst tradecraft number 3, which is Benny getting through in the first place. Now, let's remember the underlying principle that girds the entire movie, that the entire movie rests upon, is the fact that these guys are psychics. And, if you try to infiltrate their organization, they can see you coming a mile away. And if that wasn't true, then we wouldn't have to do any of this Hauser rigmarole. However, when Benny gets into Quato's inner circle, he's not detected by them, which I could paper over if I had to. Maybe psychics can't detect the emotions of other psychics. Like maybe they just are naturally shielded or something. And I think that someone actually spotted this as a problem and brought it up, and they papered it over in the silliest way, the flimsiest way I can think of, which is, if you notice, all of Quato's inner circle guards are not mutants. They're humans. So someone maybe mentioned like, hey, we can't have a mutant in the room. They would detect Benny. It, unwraps the entire purpose of the film. And someone said, well, let's say like just all his bodyguards are humans. They don't have any psychic powers. Well, that's where I'm going to put my worst tradecraft, is because if you do have access to psychics, you use those as your bodyguards.
Yeah. Actually,
well, didn't he spend like an entire scene sitting in that bar full of mutants, the strip club?
No, he comes running in with them. And they all get ushered into the secret passage pretty fast.
I know what Anthony's talking about.
Yeah.
When he's feeling up on Three Boob Lady.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, he's just sitting in
there. I had that exact same question. I've had that question for a long time, Todd. And I think part of it might just be that the only person that's psychic is Quato. Like,
well, no, the little girl is psychic.
Well, no, she's not necessarily psychic. Like, but I think he has to touch you. Like, Quato has to touch you in order to know whatever. And I did look at your notes, and you did talk about the little girl guessing his birth date. Are we sure that's even his birth date? Right?
Well, he was just playing along.
Also, she only guesses his astrological sign.
That's right.
So that indicates, that's a good indication or a suggestion of the limitation of their psychic powers. Yeah. I mean, clearly they can't just, reach across and read Cohagen's mind, all the way from Venustown up into his tower. You got to have some proximity. Not inaccuracy, but the I don't know, non-specificity of her guess of his birthday kind of says like, okay, they're not all they're not exactly mind readers. And yeah, I think Quado is more powerful than the rest of them, but I felt that the movie was trying to tell you that the whole like just psychic powers kind of just go with being a mutant.
That's the impression I got for sure.
Yeah. Well, my problem with Benny is they don't even know him, right? Like he was involved in a car. He was involved in a car chase, and like Melina vouches for him, but like, do any of these other guys know who this dude is? Right? Like, I don't know. Like, if I was guarding the leader of the resistance, right? Like, the guy who's going to lead me to glorious revolution. Even if one of my agents is like, oh no, he's cool. He's not vetted. We don't know anything about this guy. No, come on to our headquarters. No, come on in. We're not even going to search you. We're not going to check you for bugs. We're not going to check you for GPS or anything. They're just like, come on in. Have a cup of coffee. Pull up a chair. Why don't you join? Here's the application. Like, what are they doing?
Are you interested in a timeshare?
Yeah. They just let him in.
No, you're right. I would have to agree. That's pretty bad spycraft to just not vet everyone who gets into your headquarters beyond one personal vouch. Yeah.
It's bad.
I'm sorry for liking Benny now. You've made me feel bad from what I like.
It's a bad
No. No, if anything Verhoeven's taught me is not to be, and I mean this sincerely, is not to be ashamed of what you like at all. Because there was a long time when I would have said my favorite directors were Ridley Scott, Terry Gilliam, and only to some of my very nerdy friends, I might say, and I kind of low-key think Verhoeven might actually be good. Like I wasn't like loud and proud about it. And it was years later, I think, that like the culture caught up more with me, and I was like, oh fuck it, man. I just don't. So yeah, you wear your Benny love right there on your sleeve.
I'll get t-shirts for all of us.
The culture will catch up with you eventually as well.
Exactly.
You just had to remember that someone else is going to like him too.
Yes,
at least one other person will like Benny. And I don't
think he's just the only black member of the cast. I think he's the only black person in existence. Like, even in the background, this movie is white as
very.
fuck.
It is very monochrome. Yes.
Yeah. Like, Benny's not a bad character. It's just a bad plot for Benny. I think that's true. Issue. Yeah. But yeah, I think we've talked about the actors.
He would have been better, I think, if without the mini boss fight. I think if it was kind of opportunistic, like he's, like, oh, why'd you betray us? It was like, I got kids to feed. They offered me a ton of money. Like he's not lying about the kids thing the whole time, but then he doesn't try to kill him with a drill 20 minutes later. I think that would have made a better plot device.
He just leaves.
Yeah.
Yeah. He could just leave.
He doesn't need to hang out. You're right.
Like like his character deserved like a throwaway line, right? Like Arnold's like, "What about Benny?" And Melina's like, "Oh yeah, he caught a shuttle back to Earth. We'll never see him again."
Show some of the mutants dragging him off to a presumed ass beating somewhere off screen.
How was my Arnold, by the way?
That was a good Arnold. It was better than mine a little bit ago.
Are you guys ready to talk about the dream theory on this one?
Oh yeah,
I've been waiting for an hour. Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay. I'm gonna start by saying that when I saw this in the theater, and like immediately after it came out in the theater, like nobody was talking about whether or not this was a dream or not. I think everyone just took it at face value. I don't think that theory started to circulate until however long later that the movie had come out on video, and some people were starting to watch it maybe multiple times and starting to pick up on the, in retrospect, extremely glaring clues.
Ernie?
That's a new one. Blue sky on Mars.
Been married long?
I don't want to spoil it for you, Doug, But you rest assured, by the time the trip is over, you get the girl, kill the bad guys, and save the entire planet. Now you tell me, isn't that worth a measly 300 credits?
Yeah.
Which I'm sure you can elaborate on there for us.
I have several notes that there are so many characters in this movie that look at Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, not even people that are talking to him directly. And even if they are, like, their gaze lingers. For example, Tiffany, the aide at Total Recall, the other African American character, good job noticing, guys, who's painting her fingernails with the palette or whatever. There's a moment when Bob McLean is talking to Quaid, and she is hovering on the other side of the glass, like she's just staring at Arnold Schwarzenegger. And it made me wonder, like, is she in on it? Right? Like, and then when he's talking to Harry, when they're first doing the pile driving thing, and he's like, don't go there. I know a guy, he got lobotomized. And then after Arnold goes back to whatever this is, I don't know, like the verb pile driving. It makes me feel weird saying pile driving. But whatever job that involves, like, he gives him a second glance. And I'm on the same page with you, Todd. I mean, I was old enough to see this movie in theaters. Like, that being said, I was 5 years old.
Okay.
But I didn't go see it. I saw this, like, my dad had a VHS copy. It was, I think, if I remember right, it was right next to The Empire Strikes Back. And I was like, ooh, Total Recall. That sounds like a fun movie. I'm 10 years old. Who cares? And then at the beginning, when he wakes up from his dream, and like Lori, and this actually have plus spy points. She's probing him for his dream. Like, she's like, you were on Mars again, huh? Who was the girl? What did she look like? What were you doing? Like, in it, like, seeing this movie 20, 30 times, I'm like, oh yeah, she's a spy too. Like, she's trying to, what is your dream about? Like, I need to report this to my superiors. I need to find out. But like, when they do that hug thing, she's like, you see her face change. She's like, this guy's getting closer. Like, she even says, like, I was written in as your wife to make sure the erasure took, right? So like, I don't know what her daily reports are, whatever. I don't know. But like, you just see the concern on her face. Like, so is it a dream? I think there's parts of an argument there that it's not a dream, that he is in fact Hauser. He's not Quaid, because everyone around him stares at him all the time. Like, they watch him. Like when he's checking into the hotel and the guy's like, identification, and he just like dead eye stares him and he doesn't blink. And then he kind of like, put your thumb on the pad, stupid. And then he, like, as he walks away, he kind of like glances at him again. He's like, Like,
okay. Yeah, I'm not picking up on these. You got the eagle eyes.
Well, my favorite thing is to watch movies over and over again to look for details. And everything matches because I guess there's two sides of this argument. Is it a dream? It's not a dream, right? And so I guess the things you could say for pro dream, everything that takes place, every single beat of this story matches up exactly with the recall package that he bought.
With what was advertised. Yeah. Blue skies on Mars.
Yeah. He's like, I'm not going to tell you everything that happens because I don't want to spoil it.
But then he does.
Yeah. He's like, you get the girl, you beat the bad guy, and you save the planet. And that's exactly what happens. Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, yeah. I mean, did you guys notice anything else? Did you see anything?
Well, yeah, I wanted to hear what Anthony thought as a first timer. Of course, you had seen the 2012 version prior to this.
10 years ago, yes.
Okay.
Much to my chagrin, I had seen the 2012 version. I don't want to repeat everything Chris just said, because I think that was very thorough, very concise. I already said it when I was talking about my initial thoughts about it. I liked how they left it up to the audience, even with the very last line. kiss me before you wake up. Oh, I'm worried this might all be a dream. Well, just kiss me before you wake up, which doesn't say, oh, it's not a dream. It kind of says it is a dream, but then it fades to black before he would wake up. I like to think that it's all a dream because it makes it, it's going to sound weird. It makes it more believable. How is this construction worker do all of these things? And now he's got some latent abilities or whatever from his old past, but if he could remember things from before, then how does he actually pass the psychic checks?
Well, there's a lot to be said about like muscle memory.
Sure.
Like, and I think it's even been proven
the
like,
muscle
in scientific
memory
studies.
of murder.
Well, like people who lose their memories, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I don't know anything about the science. All I know is what I've read on the internet. So it could be true. It could be not. But like, it's been proven that you retain non-specific memories when you experience amnesia. I talked about Gina Davis earlier. She was in a movie called The Long Kiss Goodnight. There's a scene where she's like dicing up a tomato and she's like, oh, I used to be a chef. And then she throws a knife at a tomato. And it's like, well, chefs don't do that. That's weird, lady. So it would make sense that Arnold Schwarzenegger, Douglas Quaid, trained professional spy when in a scenario in which he's surrounded by 4 men, 2 of them have firearms and they appear to be about to kill him. Like adrenaline and instinct would take over, right? Your animal brain, like not your mammal brain, your lizard brain would be like, these guys have to die. We're going to die or they're going to die. And he just takes over. And I mean, look at him. He's ripped. Like, what do you mean? How can you do all these things, man? Like there's like Harry's a construction worker too. And he looks like me. Like he's like his belly's hanging over the pile driver and Arnold's got these like arms the size of my skull. Like, what do you mean? How can he do these things? Come on, man.
Well, there's skill and then there's physical strength. Sure. I'm leaning towards it being all a dream. I think that's more interesting, but I think at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because if your reality is what you make it, even if for everyone else he's ever known, he is trapped in a coma because of recall and his wife has made a lot of money off the lawsuits. His reality is still what's in his head and what's going on. And so it doesn't matter. I think that the film does a really good job of giving you both equally. It could be a dream. It could not be a dream.
Well, that was Verhoeven's intent.
Yeah.
That was his
100%. Yeah.
That's his express intent. I've always wondered what happens the day after.
So that's
like,
yeah.
Do you then go back to breaking rocks and think that you were a secret agent, or do you just think, wow, that was a cool story, I want to go do another one?
If he wakes up, it doesn't just die or continue. We talked earlier about how they tried to make a sequel to this film, and I'm assuming because the sequel was Minority Report, and there's a sequel comic book, if I recall. I closed those notes that were talking about that, but they all seem to be sequels based off of it not being a dream, or if it is a dream, it's a continuation of the dream. And so I think that, I don't know, I think that's a little boring, and so I'm really happy that the sequels didn't really happen, because I think it would be very difficult to keep that balance up if you do 3 more movies, as Hollywood is want to do.
There's also a problem with the dream theory in that we have scenes in which Arnold Schwarzenegger is not present or unconscious.
That's true.
Which is something that I think puts a big hole in the hull, and something which I believe the 2012 film avoided. Well, possibly to its detriment, because I felt, not to get too far into 2012, but by the time Cranston showed up, I was seriously kind of like, all right, who are you again? Whereas this movie, we're definitely along the ride with Cohagen. We're building him up. We're getting his side scenes. We're learning who he is. And so it's kind of to the detriment of the 2012 film, but I do think that is something that they must have decided, like, let's sidestep that puddle.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll counter that with this.
All right.
Have you ever had a dream that you weren't involved in?
Well, that's the other thing. If it works, like dream logic could pertain. Absolutely.
My other thing is, Todd, do you like Star Trek? Like not just as a series, but like the whole franchise. You like Star Trek?
Very much so. And
Okay.
and by the way, you guys have served very well as being my number one go-tos on all the new stuff. On deciding whether or not I want to watch it. I go to Sci-Fi Wise Guys first, see what you guys have to say, and
That's a lot of pressure, Todd. That's a lot of pressure.
So do you know how the transporters in Star Trek actually work? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know that. Yeah, the
So-
bones theory.
You get scanned into what's called a pattern buffer, right? And then you get disintegrated. And then a copy of you is transported to another location, right? So
Creating a massive, disturbing philosophical question.
yeah. So I mean, like it all ties into this movie. Like, well, not that, but like the idea of what is real, like who is Doug Quaid? Everything in like, because we only ever see it from Quaid's perspective. We never get to experience Arnold Schwarzenegger as Hauser. So, like I was saying earlier, Doug Quaid is in reality. Like he looks like Hauser, he talks like Hauser, he has all these relationships with these people as Hauser, but as Doug Quaid, he's an outsider, but he's the only one that exists. So like, will Hauser ever truly exist again? Like we watched another movie called The Scribbler for our podcast this week, involving someone who experiences dissociative identity disorder. Like, and part of that movie is like, who's the real person, you know? And like, I think like the idea of mind wiping, memory eraser, like I'm firmly in camp that it's not dream. I truly believe that everything that happens in this movie, quote unquote, happens. Strictly based on, yes, there are scenes that do not involve Arnold Schwarzenegger, but like there's too many, in my opinion, coincidences. And it could be, you could argue that like if you were in a dream, everything would revolve around you, right? Like, because all dreams are stories. You know, if you have a dream where you're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, no one's going to care about worker number 655 underneath you. But like, just when he, I don't know if this is tradecraft or not, but I counted as I think this is my number 2 spot tradecraft. When he gets the note, when he gets the safety deposit box and he gets that note out, he flips it over and sees the handwriting and immediately tries to rewrite the word Melina. And it's not quite the same handwriting, but it's close enough to think that that could be something that he could write. Like, I don't think you would do that in a dream. I think if you are a person who is suffering from lost memories and you were like, that kind of looks like my handwriting, and you would to write out a word, like you wouldn't do that in a dream. I think you'd do that in real life.
Or it would either be perfect or it would be completely different because your dream's trying to tell you one or the other. It wouldn't have as much ambiguity.
I blamed that on movie making logic, because for sure, if you show me my handwriting, I don't need to test it. I will recognize it, you know? So I just blamed that on, you know, them wanting to stress the point to the audience. But yeah, it's a good point. I mean, you know, people can go back and forth over it and have. I could move on to the actual tradecraft of the film. I want to try to wrap that up. I think it's a good segue because this is something where, because of the nature of this movie, like you cannot find an explanation on the internet of the spy story of this movie, because anything you Google that remotely says try to explain to me what is
Oh
going on
my
in Total
gosh.
Recall is completely going to be essays about the dream versus not dream theory. But if you guys don't mind, I'm going to do my thing here where I try to rigorously go through and pry open every crack. We already talked about the fundamental problem this spy mission needs to overcome, which is the psychic powers of the mutants, at least of Quato. So, and then for purposes of this, we're going to assume that it is real, because I don't really need to talk about the tradecraft of a dream. So we think there used to be a guy named Hauser, and that he previously tried to infiltrate this ring of mutants, presumably seducing Melina as part of his access. And now they're mad at him and don't trust him. So I think this plan had to have been formulated before he tried to infiltrate the first time, because he couldn't, otherwise they would read his thoughts and they would know, like, oh, this is a whole plan. So it's got to be like a kind of a plan B. Although I don't rule out that Cohagen might have already had this figured out, and just sent Hauser in blind. When Hauser comes back and says, it can't be done, Cohagen says, my friend, but it can. Let me show you how. Let's see. As far as getting Quato's trust here, it's really just the fact that Cohagen has apparently lobotomized Hauser, in a manner of speaking, and is actively trying to kill him, is the reason that Quato's even considering giving him an audience in the first place. I could posit a better element for that. I think that if Quato had come into possession of some kind of information suggesting that Hauser's betrayal of Cohagen had happened, and you need Quato to believe that Hauser has something buried in his memory that's extremely dangerous to Cohagen. And then under that thing, they wouldn't just wait around necessarily for Hauser Quaid to come to them. They would have maybe actively tried to seek him out, and help him out of this situation. That to me is a better plan, because right now we kind of don't exactly know how the plan was supposed to go, because Recall is sold to us as having been a mistake, that it was activated too soon. We don't know what it would have looked like exactly if he had been activated on time. But if he had been activated on time, then the role of Laurie and his friend on Earth should have been and Richter for that fucking matter, should have been to facilitate him getting to the mutants, not to try to thwart him at every turn. This falls into the trap, in my opinion, of being what I call a duck, duck, goose plot, where the villain just keeps trying to stop the hero from prevailing, stop him from prevailing, and then you get to the end, and all of a sudden they say, "Oh no, I meant for you to do all that," which is kind of BS. There's no reason, and this is one of my worst tradecrafts of the film. There's no reason for the Earth team to not be read in on the plan. There's no reason for Richter to not know what the mission is. There's no mutants on Earth. There's nobody going to probe his mind. In fact, don't even send Richter to Earth. Keep him here on Mars, right? And keep him ignorant. But Laurie and the friend need to know what the plan is. And then once he gets activated and put over here, you tell Richter, I need that guy captured but not killed. And I really, really need it. So you actually get Richter totally on Quaid's ass in a way that looks believable to the mutants. But I still think it would have been better if you'd planted some kind of information, if you'd hinted there's something in Hauser's memory. That's the reason I wiped his memory, because by all means, I need to keep you guys from getting to this. And then you still keep Richter in the dark just to prevent, any leakage of the plan until you get to the point where, okay, now you can try to kill him. Yeah. There's a massive failure of communication here for Red Team. Because Suitcase Guy, what about Suitcase Guy? Why does he think that this is the time to deliver the suitcase to Hauser?
Well, in my headcanon,
the most important canon of all.
In the way that I think the plot works is that Lori kept reporting, this dude's having dreams about Mars. Like this guy can't stop dreaming about Mars. He can't stop thinking about Melina. He can't, he's going to remember. But she doesn't tell, she's reporting to Richter. So Richter comes to Earth, right? He doesn't tell Cohagen, because even later on in the movie, Cohagen's like, Richter almost screwed everything up. So so Richter comes to Earth. Richter activates Harry, and this is something that I'm not sure, and this is why I either think Tiffany, the assistant at Recall, is in on the plan, or they just track his bank account, which makes more sense. That he goes to Recall, and as soon as he gets to Recall, Richter activates Harry. Harry tries to kill Quaid, and then that's when the whole spy thing breaks down. That exact moment, and I think Helm, Richter's number one hench, even says the reason why Richter's probably pissed off. He's like, I wouldn't want this dude porking my wife every night. I think Richter is acting emotionally. He's not thinking logically. He doesn't care about this grand plan. He doesn't know about it, to be honest. All he knows is his legally married wife is banging some other dude, and he can't do anything about it. It's been going on for several weeks, and so his emotions get involved.
Not just having sex with another guy, but having sex with another guy under orders from his boss.
Yeah, who he probably knows Hauser. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume so. That's another kind of, that's part of the hole in the plot a little bit. My number one worst spycraft, I almost said spacecraft. My number one worst spycraft is also not letting Richter in on the plan at any point.
Yeah,
and not giving him Cohagen's plan almost works, right? Or we wouldn't have a movie. But he put all his eggs in one basket. You're right, Todd. He could have leaked some information elsewhere. You could have had Richter. Maybe he let Richter in on the wrong plan, but something that's close enough to where he would act it out better. And he doesn't have.
I like that.
There's so many better ways. For this otherwise excellent villain, and his plan works out, but it's way too complicated. And like I said, all the eggs are in one basket. Quaid gets shot at any point by any of the people that he kills on Earth, or gets sucked out into space as soon as he gets to Mars. Your whole plan's you're back at square one.
Yeah.
Good job. You know,
Gold Ducat could have killed this dude.
Yeah. Gold Ducat could have killed this guy as soon as they got to Mars. Or the doctor, because Robert Picardo plays the taxi cab. They could have hacked the taxi cab, whatever that was called, the automated one, and just
Johnny Cab.
Cab drove him off a cliff. I think that the plan on paper at a high level, we need to infiltrate these guys and their psychics. So the only way we can send somebody in is if they don't know they're a mole. Okay, let's erase their mind. Okay, I'm in so far. But why are you doing it to your number one agent? Why are you doing it to the guy that they already recognize? And people know? It's not like Arnold could just walk around and even or sort of Quaid or Hauser. He's a tall, accented, muscular man. He sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah,
he's not a great secret agent.
Well,
sorry.
That's true, and that should have been on my list. That absolutely should have been on my list. I missed it. Yeah, you do not hire these kind of people to be secret agents. You don't even want tall people.
He doesn't blend in anywhere.
Very short, bland people.
My biggest problem with this plan is, what's the plan if he doesn't go to Recall? Right?
Yeah, we don't know. We see that some things are in place. There's a suitcase that's going to be delivered at some point.
But Lori even says, I was assigned to be your wife 6 weeks ago to make sure the erasure took. Yeah.
Right. Is it 6 weeks?
So if the erasure takes, why did you do it?
Why would he ever go back to Mars? Well, I think
No. Why would you ever erase his memories if he never goes to recall? He just stays on Earth as a construction worker. What's the point?
I think that's the suitcase. I think
Well,
that
yeah, they said he
the
got
suitcase.
activated too soon. The plan was never to keep him under wraps the whole time. It's just that they had a whole timing of it, and this just like triggered him too early.
But I mean, when's the right time? Like
exactly.
Yeah.
How long are you gonna wait? But yeah, there would have to be have been some kind of plan to start like letting him find weird things around the house or files or a secret thing in his closet that starts giving him clues. But then you're still relying on him to do a whole lot of detective work, and you'd have to handhold him so hard to get him to do what you want. Much better, in my opinion, you give the mutants a reason to seek him out.
Like, does he go to Mars? Does he go to Mars with Lori?
Nah, she comes later.
And that might be why she wouldn't be part of it.
Maybe she gets kidnapped.
Like, I'm gonna throw out this crazy theory. He was meant to go to recall. He was activated right on time. To Cohagen on Cohagen's timeline, no one else's timeline, activated right on time. And Cohagen saying that, he's activated, it's just motivation for Richter and crew and the rest of everyone else in the agency, as they're calling it, to chase him down. That's the only thing that can make sense to me, is that the dreams were good and that he was supposed to go to recall eventually and get triggered. I mean, actually, what makes most sense is that it's all a dream, but now that we're talking about it like it's not. But yeah, there's a lot of holes. Like I said, this movie very much needs to be taken at face value, I think. As soon as you scratch at it a little bit or pick at it a little bit, Arnold's not a good spy. The character he's playing is not a good spy or secret agent or assassin or anything. Cohagen's plan is bad. It's very, very bad. The not letting, like, the whole lack of information. I don't know if that's I feel like that's a trope, like not telling I can't tell the rest of the team the plan because then it might not work. Like, I'm manipulating, like, red team leader is manipulating red team and blue team at the same time. Like, there's just too much dice rolling, but I don't know. It almost works.
That's true. It does almost work.
But even if at the very end, like, it finally works, he did, like, how many people died in order to make that work? So, like, not just innocent people, but, like, you can't have henchmen are a finite resource. That's all I'm saying. And he killed a lot of them.
That's true. And, just stray bullet, anytime in an action movie, when you're trying to, like, do this level of, like, obfuscation of your plan, it just sucks when you go back and think about just how, like, one stray bullet, and kaput, you're done.
Well, I mean, isn't that how, like, people justify how stormtroopers are bad shots? They're just like, they knew who Luke and Leia were, so they were intentionally missing when they were trying to shoot at him when they were escaping the
That's
Death
just nerds
Star.
like us going on podcasts and trying to, like, justify movies we like. Okay, like, we all.
I've actually got a major nitpick and then a question for Todd.
All right.
My major nitpick is that when he goes to recall, he walks up to that computer and he stops and he starts typing. He does not type the word McLean. He doesn't type the word Bob, and he doesn't type the word recall. So what is he typing?
This is what computer when?
So when he goes to recall, like, after he talks to Harry, when Quaid goes to recall and he's walking through. By the way, I really like the architecture of Earth. It really reminded me of Equilibrium. I think this particular architectural style is called Brutalist.
Yeah,
but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Good name.
He walks into the office building. He walks up to one of those computers. I'm sure you've seen it. Like, it happened in Die Hard, when he also types McLean. But he doesn't type McLean. And he doesn't type recall. And when I watched this movie again this morning, and I went back and watched the scene several times, and I can't tell you exactly what he types, but it's not recall. and it's not McClane. That's my nitpick. My second question is, I don't know if this is
Why do you want him to type McClane?
because that's Doctor. It's Bob McClane is the doctor, the guy who runs the recall office.
Okay.
Like I said, it's a nitpick. It's childish, but it's a nitpick.
Hey, that's what I like to do on this podcast.
Question: and this might be, I think this is negative spy points. When Quaid arrives back at the apartment, Laurie's like, "I'm going to call the doctor," and he's like, "No, don't call anyone." And then he leaves the room, and she calls Richter. She leaves the camera on. It doesn't turn off the TV. So like after he disarms her in the midst of Mortal Kombat, and she's like, "Oh, maybe we can have one more, we can have sex again. Just one more time for old time's sake." And then he turns around and sees the guys coming up the elevator. Like, why would she leave that on?
Why would they leave it on? You can hang up a phone from both directions, right?
Well, you can argue that she left the camera on because she wanted them to know what's going on in the room, right? But she could have turned the TV off so he wouldn't know if they were coming, because the TV and the camera phone are two different objects in this scenario.
Fantastic.
Like,
I'll leave it to you.
I don't know. Like, that's just, it seemed like a dumb thing to do. Also, there's no camera on the camera phones.
Like, oh, there's no lens that you can see?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
There's no camera.
Well,
I can just assume that they talk through the screen.
Chalk that up to bad, weird sci-fi of the 80s and 90s. You don't have to explain all that.
I also have a continuity error in this scene.
Well, don't you know that screens are lenses in the future?
That makes sense to me. Yeah.
When he returns, he grabs her and he turns off all the lights. This is actually a bit of trivia. The tennis player is a professional tennis player. I don't know if you guys knew that or not.
No.
Her name is Linda Howe. Anyways, he's like, he holds his hands up and they're covered in blood. He's like, "Does this look like a delusion?" But he had just grabbed her and touched her, and there's no blood on her.
There's no blood anywhere. He touched all sorts of stuff. The doorknob.
We got a continuity error.
He holds his hands up. They're just dripping blood. I'm like, no, but there's, yeah.
Does this look like a delusion?
We should do an audio version of this movie, and you can play Arnold. I'll play Sharon Stone.
Please do. So I feel like we're in the weeds. Sorry,
we're
Todd.
we're definitely in the weeds.
That's all right. That's all right. I think that's a good cue. If we're that deep in, might be time to start landing this plane and wrapping it up. Let's try to quickly. I think you guys have given your reasons before, but can you give it a 1 to 5 on just how much you like the movie?
Anthony, you go first.
Oh, I'm going to give it
You don't have to.
No, I'm going to give it a 3.5. I want to give it a 3 watching it today, but thinking about what I would have thought in 1990, having seen it and knowing its impact, I want to give it a 4.5. So I'm gonna average it out to 3.5.
I'm right there with you. It was pretty easy for me because I could simply compare it to RoboCop and Starship Troopers, both of which are unqualified 5s for me. I think those are must see, and this is maybe. I mean, it's cool for what it is, but you don't need to have had it in your life. Definitely enjoyed it at the time.
I'll probably be the only one. I mean, if I were to rate this thing just on its star rating, I believe it's a 5. And the reason why is, like, we didn't really get a chance to talk about it, but I'll go ahead and talk about it right now. This is a fantastically made movie. Like, the sets,
absolutely,
the cinematography, the camera work, the acting. I think the only real weak acting in this movie, believe it or not, is Benny. Only because he's so over the top and out of order, like in every single scene that he's in. Like he's not the worst actor. I think he's just like
that could be
he just
direction.
doesn't fit the theme of the movie. Like
It's
he's
tone. I think is the word you're
yeah.
really
Like
looking for.
he's like a character
he's a little
from
off key.
He's like from Lethal Weapon. You take like he's out of Lethal Weapon with like he makes a bunch of like there's crappy one-liners in this movie, like see you at the body, Richter, right? But like he's just like, hey man, I got 5 kids to feed. Like, chill,
Yeah,
calm down, Benny. Like there are some moments when speaking of that elevator scene, like when he throws him against the wall in the elevator, and I didn't notice this when I was a kid, probably because I was watching it on shitty VHS, but like you can see the walls bend.
You mean when they throw Arnold against the concrete when his friends from work first throw him against the wall, like the concrete wall just moves a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a fun fact. This movie was originally supposed to be filmed in Houston.
I can see it.
Downtown Houston. I don't know if you've ever been there, Todd. There are a lot of futuristic looking buildings. Oh. Apparently they couldn't get the permits for it or whatever. So they ended up filming in a military base in Mexico City. So like, I mean the scenes when he's walking around like in the open city, I think that just happens to be in Mexico City. But like, the when they're on Mars, that's supposed to be a military base.
Interesting.
Like, there's like Verhoeven is very like, he's very subliminal but direct at the same time. Like in Starship Troopers, a lot of people are like, oh, I love this action movie, and it's like, did you get the whole anti-establishment message? And they're like, no. Well, okay. Like, did you get the message in RoboCop with OCP? Probably not, right? Because everyone thinks it's a great action movie. But I think this movie,
that RoboCop is Jesus.
Yeah. Police Jesus.
He walks on water at the end of the film. That is intentional in Verhoeven's mind.
Oh yeah. No, I think this movie's a 5. I think it's a classic. Like in terms of, if you're looking at this movie as a pure action film, 5. Everything about it is a 5. It's park bench meter.
Park bench.
It's gonna be on the other end. I'm gonna run down my best and worst tradecraft. I'm gonna do it fairly quickly. We'll slap a park bench rating on this. Feel free to comment though on any of these. Although I think we did kind of cover them. Little minor shout out to wet towel around the head to block a tracking signal. Sci-fi and spy movies actually don't really mix very well, even though a lot of spy movies do involve like a little tiny bit of bleeding edge science fiction. But it's so hard to find a true science fiction spy movie. Might not be one that exists. Although Counterpart, I haven't finished yet. That's Simmons. The Simmons guy, I'm forgetting his first name. He's got initials. R.K. Simmons? JK. Yeah, where he is a secret agent in a world where they've cracked the timeline. It's like a multiverse movie, but there's really just one place where it split off into 2 realities, and they can travel back and forth. And it involves the intelligence agencies of the 2 alternate universes playing against each other.
That's pretty cool.
So that would probably qualify. But so when I look for good tradecraft in a movie like this, I got to pick up tiny pieces. And even though, like, who knows why it works, but wet towel around the head just seemed like a fun little bit. I'll give my number 3 best tradecraft just to the hologram. The technology, its utility for a secret agent would be very high. It's a fun kind of thing to have around. Number 2 best, I don't remember his name. You guys are so much better on the actors, but the red pill scene. When things have gone wrong in this way, this is such a great, genius, bold ploy that if you're accepting the whole surreality of the film, really plays well as a piece of genius. And even though we have talked about all the ways that this plan needed to be planned out better, the sheer concept, especially if you're going to make a science fiction spy movie, the sheer concept of having to go up against and infiltrate a group of psychics, how would you do that? We wipe your memories. That's fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
That really is.
It really is. I have a best and worst spycraft. I just have 2 and 2 because I couldn't find enough. Like this not being a proper
That's
spy
fantastic.
movie.
Let's
If
hear
that's
your
all
best.
right. My best actually,
Yeah.
Chris mentioned it already. Sharon Stone interrogating Quaid multiple times.
yeah.
Every time she's talking to him, she's trying to dig at information. She's fantastic in that role. Number 2 is also the red pill scene. That whole kind of intrigue we're bringing back. Like, I think that's the one scene in the second, third act, really kicking off the third act, that really questions the whole reality of everything and tries to, depending on what side of the plan you're on, either push him back towards the psychics because he's come, kind of off course, or bring him back into the fold. I'm not sure because, everyone gets murdered. As far as bad goes, we already mentioned not letting Richter in on at least some part of the plan. We've beat that to death. A new piece that I think is bad tradecraft is the briefcase. Not the fact that it exists and not all the goodies he got in it, but how it's delivered to him. They don't even hide it. He's like, "Do you see me out your window?" And he drops the briefcase in the middle of the sidewalk. Like, if that old lady had been 2 seconds faster and swiping it, this whole movie wouldn't have happened. It's such, like, he didn't hide it. He didn't put it under a park bench. Like, he didn't do anything with it. It's this huge silver, like, reflective briefcase. And he's just like, "I'm going to put it in the middle of the sidewalk and walk away. I hope all these passerby don't grab it." Let's just, sorry. There's just like, there's better ways to do a handoff. Like, pretty much any way, actually. I think of any other way is a better idea for a handoff.
I mean, like, he could have been like, he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to help you." And then there's a knock on the door, right?
Yeah.
And some bellhop brought the suitcase to him.
Or it's just,
there's no
or it's just there in the hallway. He knocked and left.
Yeah,
like, that's much safer than leaving it on the side of the street. Sorry. We didn't get to rant about that earlier, so that's my point number 2 for bad tradecraft. It almost doesn't work.
I appreciate it. I love it that you're game to play along with the best and worst here.
I'm here. Win in Rome.
I have a question about the hologram.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Is it bulletproof?
Apparently, because they shoot through it and don't shoot each other. I was yelling at the television. I was yelling. I was like, why are they not dying? They're just shooting through the hologram.
Even 11-year-old me was like, no.
But they shoot through her hologram later. She uses it, and they shoot through and kill each other. Sorry.
That's a rough one. That's a rough one.
No, is that bad spycraft or just bad movie making? I don't know. Both.
No, I think Red Pill Guy is my best tradecraft. Mini Morpheus, you already talked about him, Todd.
Mini Morpheus.
I wonder what the actual, like, I've thought often about what the plan was after he takes Red Pill. Like, I don't think the plan is to kill him. Yeah, because, like, if you kill him, what was the point of everything else that happens in the movie? And then even Cohagen says, like, if you'll play along, Richter, this is how it's going to unfold. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, does he just pass out and go to sleep, and then they put him in the recall thing, and they kind of, like, change his memories a little bit, and then they go back to the original plan? I don't know. That's
yeah, I don't know.
But no, I like to Dr. Edgemar. He's my best tradecraft. Like,
that's interesting. I never thought of the idea of them rewinding his memories just a little bit. They could choose any point, sort of. Well, no, because everyone else, all this shit has already happened, though. He's already visited the mutants and stuff, right?
Maybe they think that he has enough information, so they turn him back into Hauser, and they use that to, I don't know, do what they need to do. I mean, you know that you need to go to that one strip club and go through a tunnel in a straight line to find their secret hideout. It's not that hard. That has air in it, but whatever.
Benny getting through, and the fact that it looked like they tried to paper it, the movie makers tried to paper it over by just having humans around. That was my worst number three. My worst number two, actually, I had listed as no guards at the alien stuff, which I thought was pretty bad. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to trade that out and just say, unless it's a dream, in which case it's perfect. But if it's real, boo on you and shame on you, movie, for doing the super James Bond spy trope of leaving your hero strapped into some kind of device. You explain your whole plan and go wandering off.
Absolutely.
Everyone leaves but the scientists.
I have in all caps.
I forgot about that.
All caps. Like, this is where the batshit crazy plan really doesn't start to make sense. So there is a dude who is a master spy / train killer who just got revealed to him that he's the dope, right? And then you insult him, you punch him in the face, you aggravate him, and you tell him that everything he knows, Douglas Quaid, is a lie. And then you leave him in a room with a bunch of scientists. There's no guards, nothing. What are we doing?
It's a great argument for Team Dream. Because it is so spy story tropey.
The movie is perfect if it's all a dream. We could hand away anything. My number one worst. There's too many people out there trying to kill Hauser. This is a dangerous way to try to prosecute your plan. Park bench rating, pretty easy for me. This is all the way at the bottom. It's a 1. It doesn't go lower than that. We can't do a half. I was going to say half.
We actually could.
It's a park chair.
Our worst possible rating. Just considering the sci-fi universe that Hauser's up against, and the idea that, if you're going up against psychics, this is not a bad plan. It's planned out bad, but that just nudged me up to the 1. I think.
Sure.
Indulge me for a second. Let me see if we ever have gone to a 0.5. We agreed that driving Miss Daisy would be an example of a 0. Yeah, I was checking to see if we've ever gone to 0.5 or what our other ones might have been. Spy Kids, 0.5. Man Called Flintstone, 0.5. Our Man Flint, 0.5. Wow. Shit.
I would say this is thinking about those movies, I would give this a 1. I changed my mind about the park chair.
I think you're right. Okay. So you're coming up to a 1.
I'll come up to a 1 now that you've given me some reference material.
All right.
Yeah. Sorry, I missed an honorable mention on my worst tradecraft. If you were a spy who lost your memory, would you, if someone called you Hauser, would you immediately be like, "I'm not Hauser"? Would you just give away that you don't remember who you are? Anyways, no, one park bench.
One park bench.
Okay.
All
right.
One park bench.
But it's one of those ones that has the anti-homeless thing in the middle of it, so it's real uncomfortable. Maybe it's got 2 of them, so it's like you barely fit. Yeah.
Well, it's a pretty shitty bench.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yes.
It's a bench in
name only.
In need of repair. Guys, I'm going to get out of here. Thanks so much for doing this with me. Remind my audience, again, if you haven't already, why haven't you gone and subscribed to the Sci-Fi Wise Guys podcast? And be sure to let them and myself know what you think of either or these episodes.
Yeah,
thanks for having us. We really appreciate it. It's fun.
Yeah. Stay healthy, stay hydrated, and don't take the red pill, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
How about this? Stay healthy, stay hydrated, and why don't you ask Maura to initiate Protocol 9?
Protocol 9 initiated. This podcast will self-destruct in 20 seconds. The preceding transmission sampled the songs Ice Cold by Audionautics, Enter the Party by Kevin MacLeod, and sound effects from freesound.org. Attributions and links are found at spieslikeus.net. Editing by Todd Hostetler.